The Nishiki Colorado Comp 27.5 Plus is a Dick's Sporting Goods bike. The Colorado is usually priced at about $499, but I bought this one on sale for $379. The question is this a good bike for the $400 to $500 price range? What you are seeing is pulled straight from the mechanic's bike rack at Dick's. The only thing that I've changed is the handlebar orientation. They had it at a bit of a down angle. Let's do a quick component rundown. The handlebars are 720 millimeters, and on paper they have a 12 millimeter rise and a 6-degree sweep. I see the sweep, but not so much the rise. There is no listed spec for the stem, but from the looks of it, I would say this is in the neighborhood of 90 millimeters. The Nishiki grips, well, they're nothing special, but they are entirely usable and they're grippy, and underneath those grips is a trigger shifter setup from SRAM. This bike features an NX 11-speed shifter, and beside that shifter is an alloy Tektro brake lever. The Colorado has Tektro AIRES series mechanical disc brakes on both the front and the rear. And for those of you keeping score, this is yet another big box bike without a tapered headset. But that straight steerer is part of an SR Suntour XCM. This fork has a remote lockout, 100 millimeters of travel, and unexpectedly, a thru-axle. The thru-axle is up front only, in the rear it's a quick release, but both of those hold a set of Nishiki 27.5 by 35 millimeter wheels with a pair of 2.8 inch wide Kenda tires. These are listed as Kenda Havocs on the Dick's Sporting Goods website, which is the same tire equipped on my $1,400 Raleigh Kodiak 2. But these lack any branding other than Kenda, which leads me to believe these may be a licensed version. The 18-inch frame is heat-treated 6061 aluminum, and you get your choice of 16, 18, or 20-inch frames. Frame sizing is one of the key positives and helps separates this from some other big box bikes. The frame is matte gray with painted orange and black trim, and you may have also noticed the chainstay design. This frame has an up-down chainstay setup. And on the inside of both the chainstays and the seat stays, you'll see orange painted trim. The drivetrain starts with alloy pedals that connect to Nishiki logoed alloy crank arms. And this is a 1x bike, and that single chainring is a 30-tooth. The 11-speed cassette has an 11 to 42-tooth range, and shifting through those gears is the same SRAM NX derailleur equipped on my Kodiak 2. The NX is a tough and proven design and generally works well when properly set up. More on that in a minute. 27.5 plus wheels, a 1x11 drivetrain, a thru-axle, XCM fork, and frame sizing. This is stacking up to be a pretty good bike for $379. Now remember, I also bought a GT Aggressor Pro from Dick's Sporting Goods, and to get the brakes to work, after 2 visits of them trying, I had to take matters into my own hands. Will this be any different? Right out of the gate, I can tell you that these Tektro AIRES brakes were properly set up. They stop perfectly, even when I get caught looking at my gimbal and not the trail and panic when I come to an unexpected turn. So they got the brakes right, but what about the shifting? This is a 1x setup, so it's not rocket science. But sadly, they didn't give it too much love, because on the first hill I noticed the telltale out of adjustment sounds and grinding coming from the back. And this really eats at me, because it's a 1x. The only thing that you have to do is set the high and low limit screws and then dial in the barrel adjuster. Unfortunately, the low limit is so far out that without the dork disc in place, this would get ugly quick. The way this was set up, the best thing to do was just to avoid the 2 lowest gears altogether. Today I'm riding Wildwood with the Colorado, and Wildwood seems to somehow have more ups than downs. That means that I end up pushing this 35-pound bike in areas that I should be able to pedal easily. Let me stress here that this is a Dick's Sporting Goods setup issue and not an issue with the bike, because I know the NX and it should be much better. This has unintentionally turned into a dual review. My experience with the local Dick's Sporting Goods setup quality, and also with the bike, but with the setup issues removed. I'm trying to look past those setup issues and also past the ever-increasing saddle angle. The saddle was too loose. I tried to tighten it up, but I lost my second Crank Brothers multi-tool somewhere on the first climb. Remind me not to buy a gold one again. Getting back to the bike, the Colorado itself is a nice ride. That XCM is, in my opinion, the first decent low-end Suntour fork. On this bike it does a good job, but that's partially aided possibly by those plus-size Kenda tires. Whatever it is, it all equals a ride that feels more upscale than the bike is priced, at least at the sale price. I also didn't expect the speed I could generate out of this bike. That is, if the poor setup didn't also affect the other end of the shifting spectrum. If I go into the highest gear, drop the chain into the chainstay. As a matter of fact, this is much like the low end. I found it's best just to avoid the 2 highest gears. So now I'm down to 7 usable gears. Just listen to these clunks. These aren't me shifting. That's me easily moving the chain from 10 to 11 with a mere cadence change on the pedals or standing to pedal. With only 7 of the 11 available gears usable, I can't get the Colorado to move like it's capable of. And that's sad because I can tell this bike is aching for some real riding. Looking past those 2 areas that need TLC, wouldn't say I'm in awe, but I'm definitely impressed because there's certainly a lack of noise. They're not the clanks that one tends to expect on big box bikes. I took this from store to trail, partly because of my GT experience, but also because most people that buy a bike from Dick's Sporting Goods are likely to do the same thing, buy and ride. Your mileage may vary and your experience not like mine, because the Dick's Sporting Goods an hour away, from what I've heard, has a decent and competent on-staff bike mechanic. So if I look at the Colorado Comp 27.5 Plus just as the bike itself, what do you get? Well, first, the bars may look bad, but the setup is actually quite comfortable. I would prefer a few extra millimeters because I've come accustomed to 760, but this is usable. I've already talked about the fork. I like the thru-axle, and the XCM is okay as far as lower end forks go. It's a good mate here with those 2.8 tires. This would have even more potential with a tapered headset, but it is what it is. I'm convinced that these are licensed Kenda tires. They're not bad, but I know what Kenda Havoc should feel like, and these are just different enough that I notice. These pedals aren't the worst, at least they're alloy, but I'm definitely going to be swapping them out for some race-face Chesters. I'll also be foregoing any future setup with Dick's, and I'll get this dialed in on my own. And I'm confident I'm going to end up with a rock-solid 1x11 budget setup. Let me give you an example of just how much better this setup is than your typical big box bike setup. Look at this NX derailleur on a bounce test. The cage barely extends. Having come from a bike with brakes that don't work all that well, this has been a pleasant change. And I really like that this is set up with the AIRES line of Tektro brakes, not some bottom end Tektros. So a sized frame, a 1x11 drivetrain, 27.5 plus wheels, there really isn't anything on this bike that's a cheap out to get to something else. I'm going to get this bike dialed in, put those race face Chesters on it, and I'll take another look at it. But I've already got an opinion, and that is that this may be the best $379 bike I've seen at any big box store. And if you can catch one on sale for the price I paid for it, you might want to give it a look. Just make sure everything's dialed in properly. So factor out the bad Dick's setup and look at the bike itself. What do you think? Is it a good buy? Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching and have a great day.